If the Browns are thinking wide receiver at 6, I like Jordyn Tyson over Carnell Tate. Yep, we'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. Tate or Tyson? My answer may surprise you in terms of which wide receiver the Browns should consider early in the draft. I've had enough with the loser mentality when it comes to the Browns' search for a new head coach, and it's a matter of preference. Do you want the shiny new toy, or do you want the comfort of a guy who's done the job before? I do want to thank you for being on every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network, and that is all thanks to you. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And yes, I meant what I said in the intro about Carnell Tate versus Jordyn Tyson and which one you would want in terms of the wide receiver room if you're adding to that room in the NFL draft, potentially at number 6 overall, because one of those wide receivers, maybe both of those wide receivers, could be going early on in that first round, in that top 10, in that top 5, in that top 6 where the Browns are. And so I'm going to be monitoring this as the pre-draft process plays out. And it could evolve, it could change. And by the way, this is coming from an Ohio State fan. I have the helmet behind me. You can see it. Like, I love Ohio State. I'm an Ohio State guy. I want Carnell Tate to be successful at the NFL level. I'm pulling for him, and I really do like his profile overall. But in terms of, and this was kind of sparked and spurned, by the way, by the conversation we had with Lance Reisland the other night, where he was kind of talking about wide receivers and who you maybe could want and how he likes touch guys better. And I started doing a little bit more digging on like those two and watching some of the tape this week on those two specifically, just to get a better sense of like, where are we at with these two? What do they offer? What would they do, or what would they give the Browns if they were added to the offense? And I'll tell you, like, so here's the thing. Both wide receivers, in terms of like the model, the archetype that they are, I think would work for the Browns. Like, you could use either or. Tate is going to be more of your like outside X-type guy, run up and down the field, go deep, throw him the ball, have him make a play. He's got really strong hands. He goes up and high points the ball and can bring it in. He's a really savvy route runner, and that's obviously something that you want at the NFL level. Jerry Jeudy's that way, but maybe Jerry Jeudy struggles to catch. And I know everyone's going to bring up the alligator arm drop that he had against Miami as like kind of the lasting moment for him of his college career, as that was his last game he played in. I still think Tate's going to be a phenomenal player. I don't think I have no qualms about him being a great player at the NFL level. And if the Browns were to take him, I would totally understand it. Like, I just don't know if like my questions for him. He also, oh, by the way, is like a great blocker. Like, he will block his ass off for you for any team. And he has a really high football IQ, which is huge. But what I will say is this. The things I think about with Tate at the NFL level are like, I don't know that he's so explosive that he's going to be like a constant vertical separator against opposing corners at the NFL level. Like, this is the best of the best. Like, at the college level, it's one thing. At the NFL level, it's another. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that consistently at the NFL level. I also don't know, by the way, and he didn't do much of this in college either, if he's going to be a guy that like creates a lot after the catch, where he makes a play and then like breaks it for a big gain, or he's running like slant routes and then he goes 50 yards to the house. I just don't think that's his profile. Now, that doesn't mean the Browns don't still need this type of receiver that he is, where yeah, he can go deep, he can take the top off at times, you can throw it out to him and he's going to come down with those 50-50 balls. Those are good players to have. But as I'm thinking about like what the Browns need in their offense, the idea that Lance brought up on Tuesday of like a touch guy, somebody that you can get the ball to and they can make plays, whether it's on a screen pass, whether it's in the slot running a slant or dragging across the middle of the field, or running a corner, or running, just straight up running deep, or having the crafty route running ability to get yourself separated and open. I think Tyson offers a little bit more of that to the table. He knows how to sort of set himself up with the right leverage to make those to make sure his routes are ending up in the right spots and that he can get open. He's got a lot of short area quickness, which tells me again that when you get him the ball in space, he's going to make things happen and he's going to make plays when they matter. And the versatility of his game, where he can line up just about anywhere. He did it all throughout his college career. He lined up outside. He lined up in the slot. That is a huge advantage to me in terms of like the flexibility that he offers, what he can do. You can get him the ball in different ways, find ways to be creative with him. And if the Browns are going offensive with their coaching search, by the way, like a coach could use a guy like that. The biggest gripe with Jordyn Tyson for me is, and it's an obvious one, is, well, first of all, I think he has struggled at times with like press coverage, like getting sort of away from those guys or like separating himself at the line of scrimmage. So that's one thing. But the bigger thing for him is just the injury history. He has constantly sort of been in and out of lineups throughout his college career. He has been plagued by some things, and that does concern you a little bit. But listen, if he can stay healthy, like I do see him as like a JSN type guy. I see him as the type of player that can basically line up wherever they want him to line up. And JSN just had a tremendous season, as we know, and he can just make plays wherever, whenever, what he wants to do, or whatever they want him to do. I love the versatility that he brings to the table. Browns would thrive with having a guy like that. It's similar in a way to like Harold Fannin. Harold Fannin, he was so important to the offense this year, and he was so versatile in what he could do, that think about all the different ways Kevin Stefanski, they were trying to get him the ball in this offense this past year. They had him lining up at quarterback at one point. He fumbled the snap, but like they were trying to get him the ball in all kinds of different ways. I think you get a similar sort of thing with Jordyn Tyson. So I'm leaning, at least right now, and I know it's only mid-January, towards Jordyn Tyson being the guy that I would take if I'm taking a wide receiver early in this draft, potentially even at number 6 overall. And obviously we got to wait and see sort of like what the scouting report is in terms of his combine, his pro day, all those things. If he participates in those, what his 40 time is. That's the other thing with Carnell Tate. Like, what's his 40 time going to be? It's probably going to be like a 4 or 5 range, I would think. 4 or 5. I don't think he's going to be like have the blitzing speed, and we'll see what Tyson's kind of comes in at as well. But again, Tyson is creative enough that he can sort of do other things, and he finds ways to get open. I just like, and he uses leverage to his advantage. I like what he brings to the table. By the way, I don't love doing the pro comp thing because I think it then sets like unrealistic expectations. But I've seen a lot of him being comped to a CeeDee Lamb. Who wouldn't want a CeeDee Lamb? And CeeDee Lamb, by the way, offers that same versatility that I talked about. He had this year 255 snaps in the slot. That was about 34% of the snaps that he took came from the slot this year. So he moves around a lot in that Cowboys offense. He does a lot of different things, can offer a lot of different looks. I envision similar stuff with Jordyn Tyson, and it's why I am riding team Jordyn Tyson right now, even as an Ohio State guy, as the first receiver I would take if I'm the Cleveland Browns. How do you feel about Tyson versus Tate? Who do you prefer? I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people in the comments saying they would still take Carnell Tate, and that's fine. Again, I don't have any qualms if they take Tate. I think Tate's still going to be a good player. I just think like in terms of this offense and needing players right now that can just make plays, I think Tyson offers a little bit more of that than I'd be intrigued by at the NFL level. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section. You can hit me up on Twitter as well, at @Spencito_. The conversation rolls on, though, as we get back to the coaching search, because there's something I keep hearing when it comes to this coaching search that is driving me absolutely insane. It's a loser's mentality, and we got to buck this thing right now. We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by the people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood now, available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. NFL season is obviously in playoff mode, and there's nothing like being at the game. The crowd noise, the energy, the cheering alongside other fans. Watching at home is great, but being at the stadium, let's be honest, it just hits different. The frustrating part is getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and watching prices change right at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. One of my favorite features is being able to see your view from your seat before you buy, so you know if there's any obstructed views, what the field's going to look like from where you're sitting. There are no surprises to you. I also like that the fees are all included up front, so the price you see when you click on the seats that you're looking at is the price you will pay at the end. No gimmicks, no false advertising. It's all right there in front of you. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. All right, so listen, there's been this take going around when it comes to this Browns coaching search really since the beginning. I've seen it since I brought up Harbaugh on this podcast as somebody that I was interested in for the Browns. I've seen it in some other instances as well. And I just think we need to stop with the loser mentality of why would he come here? I see it in the comments on YouTube. I see it in my mentions on Twitter. It's this constant stream of why would this guy come here? Why would that guy come here? Nobody wants to come here. And I always go back to the blanket statement of guys, there's only 32 of these things. Someone's going to take the job. And I can also wrap my head around the idea that yes, there are more attractive jobs than not attractive jobs in the NFL. I said that wrong. There's more attractive jobs than the Browns job in this cycle, and maybe in most cycles when the Browns have an opening, right? I understand a team like the Raiders is maybe more attractive because you're going to have the rights to Fernando Mendoza if you really want him. And if you're a coach that likes Fernando Mendoza, go get your guy, right? I think you can obviously look and say, listen, the Bills' job is better. They have Josh Allen, for God's sake. You can look and say the Ravens' job is better. They have Lamar Jackson, for God's sake. I'm not saying there aren't jobs that are better than the Browns and that doesn't, that puts you at a disadvantage to some of those other teams. But what I will say is we have to get past this notion that nobody would ever come here and nobody wants to come here. All it takes is one coach. And I think Sean McDermott is actually the perfect example for this because I did the show the other day about Sean McDermott being my guy in terms of who I would want the Browns to go get at this point if the coach is still out there and available or the candidate's still out there and available. By the way, we haven't heard them link to him much yet other than the fact that they're doing some legwork on looking into him and considering him and whatever, but he has no interview scheduled. There's none of that going on at this juncture. But so again, I'm not reporting anything here, but I just think that when it comes to this, somebody like Sean McDermott, and I bring him up as this is the white whale. This is the guy that they should go get. This is the guy that they need to, make their head coach because he's a culture builder. You know what you're going to get with him. Look what he did in Buffalo. I want that here. When I say these things, people I think agree, but they're like, that's fine, Spencer, but he's never going to come here. He's never going to come to a place like Cleveland with all this dysfunction. Do I need to remind you where the Bills were before he got there? He embraced the Bills before they were the Bills that we know now, with Josh Allen leading them to the playoffs every single year and competing for or being in the conversation for the Super Bowl every year. This was a Bills team that was largely where the Browns are still right now. They were a team that was always flailing, always the butt of the joke, always a laughingstock in football. They could never get out of their own way. They were dysfunctional. And then he comes there before Josh Allen, by the way, and turns them around and gets them on the right track and builds a culture. And now they're constantly in the playoff conversation and the Super Bowl conversation. They're and Buffalo and Cleveland are very similar markets in that way, where it's I could see him trying to come here and do something similar. Maybe, yeah, because he has other options, he wouldn't consider it. But the idea that who's going to come to Cleveland? I think is just such a loser mentality to have when some coaches are motivated. We don't know what people are motivated by. When Sean McDermott took that Buffalo job, it was his first opportunity coach as a head coach. at the NFL level. But at the same time, like he didn't run from it. He embraced it. He embraced the fact that it's like this blue collar town that doesn't, that loves their football and just wants to see a consistent winner. And he leaned into those things. Like he would fit perfectly here in Cleveland for those exact same reasons. And maybe he's the type of guy that embraces that type of challenge where it's like, yeah, it's not a perfect situation, but I'm going to turn it around and be the guy that sort of sets the culture and the precedent for what's supposed to be a winning team in that town. Again, people are motivated by different things. So I have to move past the idea that like nobody's going to take this job. None of the top candidates are ever going to be interested in this job. Like you don't know until you try. You don't know until you ask. You're right. Maybe Sean McDermott will go somewhere else. But I just have a hard time. Like I can't keep doing this thing where every time there's a Browns coaching search, it's just like, well, who's going to come work here for this guy? And who's going to come work here for that guy? And again, I admitted on the top of this, I understand it's probably not the most attractive job out there. I also understand having an incumbent GM sometimes can be less attractive, although it could be more attractive because in theory, if you're a coach coming in, that GM could be gone in a year because he's the next person sort of on the chopping block if things go awry and you get to pick your own GM then. So that might be attractive to somebody. I don't know. But again, I understand where there's a lot of years of dysfunction here in Cleveland and a team that hasn't been able to get out of their own way and people don't trust necessarily the Haslams and the ownership group here. Maybe you don't trust Andrew Berry either. But like the notion that nobody's going to ever say yes to the Browns and they shouldn't even bother trying because like, why is this guy going to come here? Why is that guy going to come here? We have to move past that to a degree. We have to believe that like at some point, someone's going to be the right coach for this job. Someone's going to be the right coach for this place and somebody's going to get this thing turned around. And maybe you don't think that's Sean McDermott. That's okay. And I'm going to talk about this coming up. Like it's kind of a matter of preference of what you want. Like the retread who's done it before or the up and comer. That's kind of like the bright young star on the rise to sort of get this thing going in the right direction. Like, but you can't be afraid of the greatness that could come with a potential partnership with a coach. And you can't be afraid to try just because, well, no one's going to want to come here anyway. No, like what your reputation is what your reputation is. It doesn't mean you can't try to lure any of these top tier or top name coaches here. And Jimmy Haslam does have some means to do that, by the way, because we know he's not afraid to spend on coaches, players, roster, whatever. We know he's going to sort of throw the bag at people if he really wants you. Like there's paths for him getting people to come to Cleveland if he really wants them to come to Cleveland. And at some point, like they're going to find the right guy for this team that gets everything going on the right track. So I just get tired of, I understand where it comes from. And I don't blame you for feeling that way if that's how you feel, because I get it. There's been a lot of losing here over the years. But you like, I don't like the conversation every time we bring up any coach or any coach of notoriety just being, well, that guy's not going to come here. Well, that guy's not going to come here. Guys, like somebody's going to take this job. Somebody's going to come here and be up to that challenge and be ready to try to take this thing head on. And I would love it if it is Sean McDermott. Maybe it's not. But even if it's somebody else, like someone's going to come and be ready to do it. And we got to accept that, like, it doesn't mean the Browns can't find a good coach just because they've had issues over the years and things have gone awry over the years and what history tells us. Like at some point they will find the right guy. Hopefully it's this cycle. Hopefully it's the next hire that they make. And we'll see what it kind of brings. But I just get tired of that because I see it so much in the comments, like I said, on the pod, in my mentions on Twitter. Like it's everywhere. And I get again where it comes from, but we got to move past that and realize like someone's going to be the right fit for this job at some point. And hopefully it's this cycle that it actually comes to fruition. Now, in terms of the coach and who you want, it kind of comes down to a matter of preference. Do you want the shiny new toy, or do you want the more stable thing that you've seen before? The comfortability that offers. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know just how important that last piece is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page to help you reach the right candidate faster. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to people who are the best match for your role, and it makes a real difference. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. The listeners of this show can get $75 in sponsored job credit to help give your job that premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Oh, it's that time of year. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life, though. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress and guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms and work that gets you every single deduction. Listen, as an independent contractor myself with the work that I do, I have so many different pieces of paper, so many different receipts from all sorts of different things that I've done throughout the year. I appreciate the extra help and the hands-on work of the TurboTax full service experts that exist online. For a limited time, you can get your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file with you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, so as the coach search for the Browns rolls on, I think at this point, where we're at in this thing, and I understand like where we need to see where we need to see this team still fulfill the Rooney Rule, and there's that piece of this, and where there's still some questions about like what they're gonna do. I think at this point, like if you're trying to figure out who the Browns should hire, or you have an opinion on who the Browns should hire, it's kind of it's basically just comes down to like a difference in opinion and philosophy of like what you want in a coach, and those differences in opinions are basically, do you want at this point the experienced coach who's done this before with I think at least some moderate success in Jim Schwartz with the Detroit Lions, and that you sort of have seen do it before and you trust can maybe manage this thing because he has that experience? Or do you want the shiny new toy where there are unknowns? I've talked about it before. It is okay for all of us. This is a safe space. It really is. It's okay for all of us or any of us to admit that we don't know how Grant Udinski's going to do as a head coach managing the locker room. We don't know how a Nate Scheelhaase, for example, would do managing a locker room as a head coach. We've never seen it before. We've never seen them do it before. It's okay to admit that. It also doesn't mean that because they haven't done it that they can't do it, or that they won't be a good coach because of it. Like, there is a mystery there. There is some unknown there, but it doesn't have to be a scary thing that like makes you run for the hills and says, well, I can't hire this guy. If they hire one of those guys, I imagine they believe that they're going to handle that part of it fine, even though we've never seen them do it before. But it kind of comes down to, but it also is important for us to understand it's an unknown, and that it might not work. It might end up being a bad hire. It might not be the right person to manage the egos and the personalities and all those things in the locker room if it's the shiny new toy. It might not be. I hope that's not the case. I want it to be something that works out if they pick one of those guys, but we just don't know at this point. So, like, it's kind of just a matter of preference. Like, do you want the comfort of knowing, well, hey, we hired Jim Schwartz because he's done this before. It's his second go around. He's probably learned some things from his first time being a head coach, and we know what kind of to expect with him in leading guys because we've seen him do it on this team already. And you know the defense is going to still be at least somewhat competitive, although I agree with Lance Riesland on the idea that, like, no matter what, the defense is getting, I think, a little bit worse because Jim Schwartz is either going to be head coach and get pulled away from things that he can't just have his hands only on the defense anymore, or he's going to end up somewhere else because he doesn't get the job, potentially, and then the defense is still taking a step back anyway. The only way maybe that isn't the case is if he does stay on staff as the DC, which we'll see. But it kind of comes down to a matter of preference, where it's like, do you want the guy who's done it before because there's comfort there and you've seen it and it's tangibly there visually in front of you to know, and we've seen him here in Cleveland? Or do you want the shiny new toy and the risks that come with that, but on the flip side, the potential that comes with, hey, maybe you find the next Sean McVay. Maybe you find the next coach, the next offensive guru that's going to take this league by storm and build your offense into a juggernaut that can contend in the playoffs and for Super Bowls like the Rams are doing right now as we speak, and all these different things, and can give you what the Jaguars had this past year where their offense turned things around and was electric again. Like that's what you're kind of hoping for with the young shiny new toy, and it could be the case. It could happen. But you got to pick the right guy too. So it's kind of this push and pull, this give and take to all those things. And some people are going to find the comfort in the stability of it, and some people are going to, want to be willing to take the risk and the chance because, it's the NFL and you can't do these things lightly. And you want to see if you want to sort of be ahead of the curve and get ahead of the curve, which is what I talked about a ton with the Browns trying to have in that same philosophy and hoping that they can sort of get ahead on certain teams or maybe certain hires of guys that could be up and coming in the years to come. So what I will say is this. I think for me right now, if it's not Sean McDermott, I know I keep banging that drum. If it's not Sean McDermott, who's going to be the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns, I think the perfect scenario for me is you hire one of the young guys and hope that you hit on the next Sean McVay, right? And you try to keep Jim Schwartz on staff as the defensive coordinator as long as he's okay with that and comfortable with that, working for a guy who's going to be like almost 30 years his junior, which is weird to say if it's whether it's Udinski or if it's Shieldhouse, that would be the case. Like if he's comfortable with that, I think that's the best path forward. It doesn't mess things up on the defensive side, which is your strength right now. It gets you this new innovative offensive mind in here and a chance to maybe find that next great coach in the NFL, that next offensive mind in the NFL. I'm okay with taking the risk if it's not Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott to me is the perfect storm because he's done it before, he's had success before, and it just would kind of come down to like what are the players and pieces and parts you're giving him to make sure this defense kind of gets it, or this team rather gets itself on track. But you've seen tangible evidence of him being a really good coach, and being able to manage a locker room. Like you get kind of the full picture with him. But again, if it's not him, I think I'm okay with the risk of the young guy with the hope that Jim Schwartz can stay on staff as DC with that coach. And I just, the thing I keep going back to with hiring Schwartz is it enough direct change? I know he's going to bring a different perspective. I know that. But like, you got rid of Stefanski because it wasn't working. It doesn't make sense to just like promote from within when you fire a coach. And frankly, I should have brought this up as well. I think I wrote about this actually on a story I did. And I want to pull it up and see if I can find it real quick because history says that the teams that have promoted from within, here it is. I found what I'm looking for. The teams that have promoted from within, like the coach that gets hired has not had a lot of success when it comes to as the head coach of the team. There's a couple examples of people who did have success. Mike Martz, when he was promoted to be the Rams head coach in 2000, he went 53-32, and had some moderate. He had 3 playoff appearances during his time as the Rams head coach. And obviously some of that too with Mike Martz was, he was part of that Greatest Show on Turf team that went to the Super Bowl, and ended up losing, right? Because he took over in 2000. Now there's that example. There's the Jason Garrett example with the Cowboys. He took over in 2011 for Wade Phillips, went 34-22, made several playoff appearances. Or actually, I think did he just make the one playoff appearance? How many playoff appearances did he have? I forget now. But regardless, there's only those 2 examples of coaches who ended up having basically like true winning records when he went 85-67, and I'm sorry, Mike Martz went 53-32. Jason Garrett went 85-67, in his time as head coach. And sorry, just to clarify again, Martz made 4 playoff appearances. Garrett made 3 playoff appearances. Martz was 3-4 in the playoffs. Garrett was 2-3 in the playoffs. So those are the only 2 examples of coaches who had winning records after they were promoted from within to be a head coach. Sorry, I had to make sure I was deciphering the chart that I had found the right way. So I appreciate you bearing with me through that. But that there's evidence that suggests that when teams have done this, and it's only happened, by the way, like a handful of times. There's like this charted dating back to 1996, and so it hasn't really happened all that often anyway. That teams have done this. There's been 13 times over the last 30 years that a coach has been promoted from within to be the head coach, and the results speak for themselves. Like, it just has not necessarily gone very well, and so I think you worry about that a little bit too. So just to clarify again, I think my ideal scenario at this point is, if it's not Sean McDermott, hire one of the young guys, hope that you're finding the next great offensive mind in this game, and hope that he will keep Jim Schwartz on staff as the defensive coordinator. I think that sort of accomplishes the best of both worlds and gets you settled into a spot where you can be comfortable and be excited about this team moving forward in the direction. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. But it all does come down to, as I said, a matter of preference. Like, do you find comfort in the guy who's done it before versus the risk of a guy who's never done it before? Are you willing to take that risk because, hey, this might work out to be the next great coach in the NFL? You decide what you want. If you liked what you heard, hit that subscribe button. Make Locked On Browns your first listen every day, wherever you get your podcasts, and at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Hey, if you don't ever miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you, by the way. Find Locked On Browns, get it ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Just go to lockedonbrowns.supercast.com or check out the link in the show notes to learn more. For those of you on video, we will send you the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel on audio. Make sure you make your second listen Locked On NFL, and you can also keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs and Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being an everydayer at the Locked On Podcast Network. I'll talk to you on Friday.